Hello, everybody. Today I want to speak a bit about awakening. I was going to say progress with awakening, but uh, so things have took a shift for me a bit. But before I speak, I want to say that I stand by most of what I've said in the past, right? In like a relative sense, but there's a more absolute level. And I'm confident that my paradigm of the nature of reality has not been correct and is still maybe not correct, but there's a difference now because this new paradigm of seeing the world, if you can even call it that, uh, it's really hard to talk about just because of the nature of it. So it began for me. I was in like a month-long rut, which confuses me of how I was even in that, because everything's changed now. And there's ebbs and flows still, like I forget and I remember, but this began when I started to reside in the Tao. The Tao, I used to call it the Tao, or the Tao. This is knowledge, say the Book of the Way or the Tao Te Ching. This is a book that speaks. One of the lines I remember is, hold on to the center. Like the more you speak about reality or it, the less you know, like the further away, or Alan Watts says, you're always one thought away from reality. And I've been I got into Alan Watts really a lot more over the past like half a year, but like even now, I feel like I'm gonna have to start listening a lot more. So I started residing in the Tao, and what this means basically is to be present, and it's been surprisingly much easier, and I found it much easier to stop thinking. That hasn't particularly been my goal, but when I'm walking up to the shop or on my way to work, I simply focus on the flow and the sensations and the infinite the infinite dimensions of different sense perceptions mainly. Like right now you can feel your feet, correct? It's like they're buzzing, vibrating. The world is in like a perpetual vibration, does it seem? Silence is also something I've tapped into. It's not even necessarily silence, but it just comes with the Tao. And I swear down it was because I met some super spiritual girl, and she gifted me this book, and this kind of, and then I've been struggling. Like I said, I was in like a rut for like a month. And I just thought, right, simply, I'm going to stop trying to figure shit out. I'm just going to reside in the Tao, the flow. And before this happened, actually, for the past month while I was in this rut, I kept looking at the present moment and things and figments of consciousness. And I'm like, and it's like an open-ended question. I'm like, why? Yeah, and something I was saying a lot is how do I, for example, not thinking is what I would deem somewhat a cheat code to reality. And I was in search with my community, my group chats on Discord and Snapchat, and I was asking the community and people of the same nature, what other cheat codes of this nature are there where, for example, where you stop thinking, this fundamentally shifts the base of reality. Heavy observation. Focus is actually what I concluded. What you focus on and what you direct your attention onto is the fundamental nature of reality. I believe I concluded that what exists is there is the Tao, yeah, ultimately it's the Tao, and everything's a part of the Tao. The Tao is the infinite flow, the energy of the all. It gives birth to infinite worlds. But ultimately, what exists is what you direct your attention on. Like when I hear life is suffering, I'm like, yeah, if you believe it's suffering, right? Like if you put your attention on that, then it is. But if you put your attention on observation visually, then that's basically all there is. Or if you put your attention on thoughts, you're kind of mired in what you focus on. I've been listening also recently to Earl Nightingale. He's not spiritual, I don't believe at all, really. Although he did say the architect of the universe did not create a stairway to nowhere. But this also implies that you're going to get somewhere. Like he says, we come from somewhere and we're going somewhere. But that is kind of relevant. But what I was saying originally is Earl Nightingale says we become what we think about. So the reason why people don't ever reach their goals is because they don't know what their goals are and they don't refine and continuously think of these. But yeah, so when I was saying about the Earl Nightingale saying that it didn't create a stairway to nowhere and why people don't reach their goals, again, it implies a future-orientated projection of reality, whereas Alan Watts says the golden goodie is on the way. And I've said this to myself all my life, is when will I get my shit together? When will I get my shit together? Why can't I get on top of my shit? And relatively speaking, it seems like I do have the will to do so. Or like, there is this finite self who can pursue getting on top of his shit. And I think maybe in some sense that's a view worth having. But like Alan Watts says, like, where does this come from? This idea that you must improve. And also the idea of the self. So, right. It's all connected, right, what I'm speaking. So I started residing in the Tao, the flow, and it's very peaceful and I love it. I realized this over the past week, is that being present in the flow of reality and being the observer has become surprisingly easy for me over the past week. This brings peace. It brings ignorance, but also knowing at the same time. Like, I know the world as myself, but I also don't know. In a way, like ignorance is bliss, and the Tao, the flow and the observation brings bliss, as it's somewhat ignorance, because the mind stops understanding somewhat, stops intellectually rationalizing, and the mind, as Mr. Nature says, you leave the mind alone, and this leaves you in being. And I've also had glimpses recently over the past few days, especially at work, where the notion of enlightenment being sensory perception, or not even just that, just pure awareness, because I know Inspector Veg speaks about like going way beyond, back past the senses, like sensory deprivation tank kind of experiences within meditation. I've never really been there, but even with senses alone, like the other day I was walking at work and I had my hands behind my back and I was fiddling with some like tub, and like just the mental image and the sensation of the presence of my hands. Like now you can feel your arm. For some reason, like when I heard that this was enlightenment before, it didn't really seem right. It just sounded a bit dead, like. But now it's like it happens to me, and I look back at it, like it happens, and it's like there's this video that says like when you suddenly gain consciousness at 5 years old. It's not a spiritual video. It's just this guy on Instagram who just makes a funny video. It's a 5-year-old like scribbling with a crayon, like, you know, just emerging out of consciousness and growing out of the world, as Alan Watts says, and he's just scribbling about, fucking about being a kid, and then he just goes, and it's like this like flash grenade sound, like, and he's like, and he says to the other kid, like, where are we? And they're all fucking around. He's like, you're still in automatic mode, and it's like, this is basically what awakening feels like. It's like you become so conscious and aware of the present moment that you just feel it fully. Feel it to heal it, as Andy Anderson says. I've been doing that a lot more, just feeling and observing, and like just the feeling feels like I swear these are glimpses of true enlightenment where there's no understanding or intellectual nothing. Not really. I mean, there might be, but that's not what I'm on about. I mean, understanding. I understand that the universe can hinge off of understanding, but it's that the sensory perception in the present moment has become so apparent very frequently that I can do nothing but kind of be conscious of somewhat the significance and the just the pure qualia, the pure sensation of the moment. And this has me looking at the world in different ways. So when I'm at work, for example, the other day, everyone just starts singing together, making pizzas and shit, as they do in the kitchen, and like you just see it from afar of what it really is. Like, and even like it can somewhat have a story, but it's just looking at the world for what it is has happened a lot more. Like, and this, I mean, this has been happening for a long time, but recently it's become much more. I know it a lot deeper now, and I've been through a lot constantly over the past few years. So, like, because when I first started dabbling in psychedelics a lot, what happens is I simply just, again, what it's the same thing I'm speaking about, is that awe is in like exploration, kind of like awe. Like I remember even like 2 years ago when I was abusing psychedelics, even when I was sober though, like I'm at work and that, and I just look around and it's just like, it could be anything. It could be a car, it could be a bird, and you just watch it. And that's what it is. It's like this ultimate observation, but it hasn't got to be in the visual field. It's just in every dimension. Like, and as I go about my day, like, so there's a different way of seeing, and this I know that Theo Live talks about this. He's like a non-duality. I haven't watched him for a long time, and he has like a girlfriend, I think. I forget what her name is called, but she has a video called "When the World Comes Full Stop," and these are things I've known about for a while, but it's like I see it now. Like so. Sometimes I leave my house or something and I go on a walk and I don't even see nothing, but they speak about enlightenment being an open seeing, and I get that a lot more now. Like there's a difference. I see fully and openly, or I don't, and I know that like sensations and qualia and like of the senses can be like dampened and dumbed down when thinking, as Eckhart Tolle says. He says like when there's no thoughts, sometimes there's like it's like a moment of transcendence. And I was even looking at myself in the mirror, I think this morning. I got out of a cold shower and I'm looking at myself and I know, and it's just an observation and I'm not ultimately me. So I'll get more into that. But this is really the core of the nature of reality, I think. I'm like starting to, I don't know if it's what I wanted it to be, but it's what it is. It's the truth, it seems, slowly. Like, I mean, but I used to listen to Theo live and say, well, what's the practical implications of this? It can be practical because you stop like consistent destructive negative thinking and identification with the thought, and it also expands your very nature of your identity, and you appreciate the aesthetics a lot more and you're much more present. This could be healthy. Clear up a lot of confusion and evolve your understanding. But yeah, like the open seeing is like, sometimes I look when I'm outside. It's more apparent when I'm outside in nature. But sometimes I really see the world as like the same way I described this mushroom entity or this mushroom intelligence that I encountered. It really seems like the world sometimes when I'm in this open seeing seems like the other I described it as, and the other in terms of is completely autonomous. I don't know if that's the right word. It means like it's completely like intelligent amongst itself, where the best example somewhat is a landscape of trees blowing intensely in the wind seems like something that is absolutely not in your control at all, but you still observe it, and when you observe it, it seems like transcendence because you're tapping into like raw qualia. Qualia just meaning sensory perception. And I find sometimes when I smoke weed, I think it's harder to reside in the thou. I'm not sure. I think it depends. I've also been upping my game with the cold showers recently. Maybe that's relevant. But it's like meditation without being formal. I can just do it anywhere I want. And there's definitely a difference, especially visually. It's mainly visual in terms of the open seeing. Like, sometimes it looks like I see it much more purely, much more transcendently. Seems like the other times potentially like it's almost like my eyes aren't completely open. My phone is running out of charge. What was I gonna say? Fuck. So another thing I started doing when I started to reside in the Tao is how Alan Watts speaks of life. The meaning of life is a musical thing, and I even concluded myself somewhat that the meaning of life is to laugh and to play, and I think that's much more. I think that's a much better say a meaning of life. Like before, I was like the meaning of life is. I think the meaning of life is just to be alive, literally. Like, it's just to play and laugh and find things funny and to hurt and to play the act and to play your role. Because nothing, you don't ultimately suffer, it's just an act because it's all created in the mind. So there's two different entities. There's like the true self and then there's the me, my name's Baron. And this is the finite self. And I see myself like when I was on a 7-gram mushroom trip recently. Or 6 grams, sorry. Of Liberty Caps. I saw a video of when I was my ego self, and I could tell that was not me from this new place, this awakened state I was observing myself from. These girls approached me in town. You can find the video on my Instagram and my TikTok. and they started fucking around with me, and I was like, I can't even have a conversation with you guys. Like, they were just like, they seemed like they were drunk, and I was like, what's wrong with this generation, man? Like, they were just fucking around, like, just approached me randomly when I was eating some burger, and I was like, trying to get them to talk about, like, I don't know, what they were doing in their life or whatever, and to like just stop shouting in the street and like, hello, what are you? But then I realized, like, one of the insights I have is when I judge people like these drunk loud girls, I'm assuming that life is anything but a party, as if this is like, as Alan Watts says, it's like, oh, this is a like, treating life as something that really, something must be ought to be done about it, like a problem to be solved. So yeah, as Alan Watts says, like, life is supposed to be a musical thing, not like a practical thing where it's always future projected. And I began to listen to reality as a song, but in every dimension of the senses, or to feel reality as a dance. Music and dance have the same characteristics where you're not dancing to get anywhere. Like, you're dancing to dance, you're singing to sing. It's not like, you're like Alan Watts says, like, you don't play the piano for the final last crashing chord. It's like everything is done just for itself. And I've started doing this at work, and I've actually started to enjoy work. And this is weird because I thought I wasn't allowed to enjoy my wage slave job. But as I see everything simply being done for itself in the present moment, and I'm just part of this big act, this game, and I trust the universe a lot more. I've started to just not think, just not worry, and just go with the flow, reside in the Tao, or the Tao, however you say it, and listen and dance with reality and listen as a musical experience. So yeah, I really feel everything as like an aesthetic happening. And one thing I thought that's quite relevant is, like, everyone thinks the universe is like materialistic and like dead, and I'm like, how does a dead world create something, my experience, that feels so alive? This is like the hard problem of consciousness. Like, how do you get taste from dead matter? You get like a spiritual taste sensation from, or like, like, because our sensory experience doesn't really, it seems way more personal than this world that is apparently so non-personal. And let's get into that now. So maybe I'll make a separate video about this, actually. But, well, basically my identity has shifted, but in a metaphysical sense. And this is what I mean, like, this, like, you think spirituality is just airy fairy ideas and beliefs. No, like, you can literally, so my identity, as in the finite ego, seemed to have like somewhat dissolved, and it seems to be ebbs and flows a lot. Like it's still there, like the image of myself, but it's way different. Like, I had a mushroom experience, again, the one on 6 grams, where I basically, for the first time, I really saw the world, the external world, as my body. I know that sounds mad, but where is the separation created? And I've heard about this intellectually for a very long time. The no self. I've had glimpses. I even done an hour-long lecture / meditation experience of actualize.org, creating an experience of no self while I was on, I think, 3.5 grams of Liberty Cap psilocybin magic mushrooms, and I stepped outside of the story of my life. And when I returned, and there's a video on my Rumble, because YouTube is taken down my main YouTube channel for the most part at the minute, for no good reason really at all. Yeah, and like when I started thinking again, I was like, but that's just the story. Like I don't have to go there. So it was like I really stepped outside of it, and as I was actually doing the practice, there was loads of mental resistance, which was very strange. It was like my ego was like screaming and dying, because it did. Because the ego, the finite self, resides in the story in your mind. So you, the self who you think you are, Baron, or whoever, whatever your name is, or who you've believed yourself to be, this is a mental image. I know this sounds way out there and it doesn't seem right, like but I feel it. I feel myself, right? But you only feel it when you project the feeling in a mental image. Like, it's the same as when, as Alan Watts says, is when you squint your eyes to see deeper, or when you listen, like, but it's all like muscle tension, but it doesn't actually enhance anything. If anything, it can actually distort. It's when you're completely lost in observation or in activity. There is no idea of the self, there is only the happening. So basically, it's like Alan Watts says, most people have the notion of like you're an ego in a bag of skin, and we came into this world as if from the outside. But he says, no, we grew out of this world. The same way that a tree produces apples, you could say the tree apples. This earth peoples, or this earth humans. Therefore, the universe humans. And the expansion of the... So he said, like, most people's paradigm is... I, a stranger and afraid in a world I never made. And that resonated with me before. And it's... I don't know, it seems to have dissolved quite a bit. And it seems to be quite rapid, this progression that I'm talking about. And it's all connected, everything that I'm talking about here. Like, I know the world as myself. And what do I mean? Like, but it's a different... It depends how you define yourself. Like, I get it, it's useful in society, obviously, to define this as me, because I'm the one that happens to be perceiving from this body. But the way that Alan Watts speaks about it, and and I'll leave a really good lecture of his linked below. It's one of the best ones. I wish I found it sooner. It's like 3.5 hours long. Is that I am the focus point of the universe. But as I really started to like watch and that, like what I see, like when I'm sat in the chair, like yeah, I'm not connected physically to the world, like as in I can get up and walk around, but I see this whole room and I see me sat in the middle of it, me. But where's the separation? Like, why do I identify with this one? Like, I get it, but this is something that I feel now, in terms of I am the room, I am the experience. Everything is just a happening. And it's really peculiar when you see it for what it really is. And when you dissolve the mental projection, it's somewhat, everything feels like an external sensation, as in like everything just happens spontaneously. Like the sensations of my body are just as valid as the sensation of me looking at this tapestry. Like, it's all just sensations, you know what I mean? In this one unified field, ultimately. So I see myself as part of the room, part of the earth. Like, yeah, it doesn't seem I'm physically tied to it, but I did grow out of it, and I will dissolve back into it. I. But what I now see myself as is I know myself as the whole thing. And I had an experience, right? So actualize.org, I went back on the no self video a month or so later, and he said, "Where is this feeling of yourself?" And I could feel it. It was like, yeah, myself. It feels like there's like it's aiming within you somewhere. And like Alan Watts says, obviously, it's like behind the eyes and in between the ears, just about there. And that does, and now I feel it. Like, yeah, I feel like I'm in there. It's weird how it comes and goes. But basically, that sensation, after he said that, about a week later, I was working at my retail job at the Co-op, some supermarket that sells polluted food. And I watched, and we'll get to the polluted food a bit because it's relevant. But I watched someone pass like a tub of chocolates over, and for some reason, my mind, like the way that I felt my identity, I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just at work like another day, but a week before that, I was like, I had where Leo Gura saying to me, "Where's the sensation of the self?" And I was like, "Yeah, I feel it in there." And when this box got passed over the shop, that sensation was on the fucking box for no fucking reason. It was just, that's me. And I could feel that was it was like there was some weird like fluke where like the idea of what myself is was projected onto an object, and I felt the exact same way as if I was that fucking thing. I know, I know. It's like if I could somehow believe that I was, if I believe that I'm this, basically what happened to me spontaneously. I didn't try. No one told me to do that, but somehow my belief from me being this in a split second spontaneously shifted to me believing that I was a external object, and I could feel the exact same sensation as if I was behind my eyes and in between my ears on an external object. So it kind of just proved that the idea of this like separate self is a projection of the mind, a created image. And also like within breathwork and deep psychedelic experiences, like there's nothing but like in some breathwork you completely lose control. So there's no idea of the self. You're just in a fucking matrix of multi-dimensional sensations. Uh, yeah. So, and another analogy by Alan Watts that I really like is like if you see like a river and there's like a whirlpool in the middle or whatever, like basically that is what this form of yourself is. It's like the world flows through you. You eat, you shit, you breathe, you take in sensory. It's like you're part of the whole. You're just a phenomenon within the flow. So yeah, I don't know how else to speak of it. Like I've had experiences as well where like I like it feels weird. Like the first few times it's like really, but it's like it gets more apparent where you can really see things as you can project your identity onto other things. And this just shows everything's in the mind. And I know it sounds like insanity, but this is the nature of this work, of the nature of reality and enlightenment is it is somewhat, as Leo Gura and the whole spiritual community and everyone, that we're all aware of that. It is really somewhat insanity at the base, the ground level. So yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't know what it means to look at the mirror and feel myself in it. Like, I can just project myself, like, yep, that's me right there. But like, it's successful, and I don't know what it means to be able to like to shift my identity from my body onto the whole room. And it's not like an egoic thing, because the ego is the finite. So like, there's this finite self, and then there's the true self. Like, yes, this might be me, like, ultimately, but you are ultimately the energy of the universe. Like, again, Leo Gura says, not exclusively him, but just in general, and this is now how I see it. It's like, it's not only is it a human feeling to love, but the universe can love. And I've had some realizations about the nature of love, what it means to love something. And that's not you, the human, doing that in a dead world. It's like, you are the fucking universe. Do you get that? No, I'm not the universe. But it's like, but you're thinking about it. People are just so trapped in their thoughts. And this is also like, it just makes me realize that everything is just an act. Like, and the whole name of the game is like that you believed that you was actually someone. Like, your true nature is unbounded infinity. And then you like fool yourself through the most elaborate infinite intelligence that you actually believe that you are like poor little me who I was a bin man running around depressed, like making music. And I was listening to one of my songs the other day. I got a song called Indoors. It's nearly 4 years old, and I was listening to it, and I was even feeling quite depressed recently. And it's like the lyrics were just a story that I tell myself, and I was like, I see it now, and it's like, it's so beautiful. The whole, like, the illusion. And the lyrics goes like, keep going, keep holding my head up, I gotta keep smiling, keep on writing my letters. I've had a shit day and now I'm smoking the shed up. I'm in a bad place, but I'm trying to get better. And while I was doing that, I had a shit day, I was smoking the shed up, and I keep telling myself I'm in a bad place and I'm trying to get better. I was listening to it from the outside, like, it's like what I tell myself. I'm in a bad place, but I'm trying to get better. I had a shit day, and now I'm smoking the shit up, and I'm like, and I see it from the outside. I'm like, that's the story I tell myself. And then your life is just like a story that you believe in, and then that's the Maya, the illusion, the act, acting the depressed one, acting the. It's all an act, but the act dissolves when you shut the fuck up and you observe. And I get it. Sometimes it's easier just to forget it, act like it's real and give in to the gimmick. But this shit is funny, you gotta admit it. Sometimes I enjoy feeling pain just to add some spice to the game. Shit ain't heating up with no flame. And yeah, sometimes when I'm at work, I really lose myself in my role of like my place in the workplace. Like, you really, like, again, you just believe, and you like kind of, you lose consciousness. And there's ebbs and flows to your awareness. Like, I swear, I've spent so many days, like when I was in that month-long rut, it was like I wasn't even awake. And I'm going about my day, and I come to awareness, like I said earlier, where I'm like, with that 5-year-old when they finally gain consciousness. Or some people never have that, and that's what awakening feels like. But I can go like many days or most of the day, and I'll wake up, and I'm like, where have I been? The whole day I've just been ticking over, like, and then it will happen again, and I'm like, how do I maintain this like awareness? Because the awareness, and you really maintain it in the Tao, the flow with the Tao, and that's meditation. And I was scared of meditation before like when I was depressed and when I was in this like rut, I was scared of meditation because it would dissolve the ego. And there are many people that feel that sitting on the tip of the spike is the realest place in the world, because when you tell yourself that you're sat on a tip of the spike, you know that you're there because there's no doubt about it. So This is why people love to torment themselves. And I've actually found one thing. Like I was saying to that spiritual girl that gave me the book of the way. Where is that? I don't know. I think I realised I actually like secretly enjoyed my depression. And I know that doesn't sound like that. I fucking hated it. But it's an act. It's God. It didn't really happen. I believed it happened and I created the whole thing. And it's kind of fun playing the lost soul. Even though it was fucking horrible. And I was really suffering and in pain for years. It was not good. But with this new awareness, I see how it's just a fabrication of the mind. Yeah, so like I said, when I'm enjoying my wage slave job, it's like I've actually come, like everything that I hate, I've started to tell myself, shut the fuck up, you love it really. And obviously this is like somewhat the goal of like spirituality, is to fall in love with everything, even the most horrific things. If you can learn to love the whole flow, the whole genius, the whole grand divinity of the whole existential truth, even the most fucked things, rape, shootings, murder, you know. Can you love it? And I know that sounds crazy, but you're in the game. What good is resisting any present occurrence? That's where the real suffering occurs. So you think it sounds insane, but the real insanity is resisting what is presently happening. That is the true insanity, and you know it. Why would you resist what simply is? That is the insane move. That is where the suffering is. If you can accept everything fully and learn to love it, because what fucking choice do you have? Hate it if you want, but feeling like shit feels like shit. You know what feels good? Feeling good. There is many reasons to feel good, and I lost sight of that at one point. Do I even want to get better? I thought when I was depressed. Yes, because getting better feels better. I actually had to relearn that. I forgot what it fucking felt like. I didn't even know. I got a cold. I ate some poison. So yeah, what I was saying is the polluted food, like I was preaching so much about how the food is like, oh come on, like, you can't be eating all this shit, man. Like, but again, it's just future projected. Like Alan Watts says, he's like, we're always eating food to often to get something out of it rather than just indulging in the desire. And I tell people now, like I say, ultimately, it's not wise. I would never buy my children polluted food of this nature. I say it's not wise to indulge in things if you're looking for the most self-actualized, personal, developed, big picture success in life. But it doesn't matter. If you're content with indulging in poison or whatever the fuck, do what you want. This is the play the land of God. God playing hide and seek with itself is another one. It's like you divided your infinity and you play a fraction role and you play hide and seek with yourself, because your true nature is pure unbounded infinity. So self-deception is a core mechanism of constructing infinite worlds, infinite dreams, infinite illusions, Maya. As if God was all powerful, does God have the power to deceive himself? That's a very good question. And the answer is yes. What would you do if you were God? What would you do if you could dream any dream you wanted to dream? Love affairs, fantasies fulfilled. Maybe you would add challenge to this dream, and maybe you would wish eventually to forget that you was dreaming, to be completely immersed in infinite worlds, to be little me, lost soul, these problems. I believe I'm me, only for the awakening to occur and realize that it was just infinite intelligence, and it was all done as an infinite entertainment simulator. Because to reside in the pure infinity forever is perfect, but why wouldn't you fuck around and play hide and seek with infinity? Of course you would, because eventually you'd wake up. How far out could you go? How lost could you get? So yeah, so when I'm at work and my wage slave job and that, like when I'm hating it, I'm like, shut up, you love it, because I'm trying to learn to love everything, and you can't, and I don't, and I hate to admit it because I was like so much, oh, I need to escape my wage slave job, man, I'm not gonna succeed. It's like, but every present moment I'm in, I just say, you love it, and like, if I learn to love it, it's like liberation, and there's so much growth in learning to love suffering. It's weird. Because I had, like I said, a love awakening experience again on mushrooms like 2-3 weeks ago. Love is pain. Love is pain, and pain is love. And trust me, there's like, what is it? You learn that love is pain, then learn to love the pain. The pain, it makes me stronger. That's why I'm on top of my game. And I recited this lyric in my mind while I was on this trip, and I nearly cried. And I was looking at my dog, and I was thinking how much I love my dog, but it was pain. It was pain to love. Why? I don't know. Why is love pain? Is it? Love is everything. So yeah, there you go. Guess I'll be on my way to the mental hospital. Says you. You're the one who still has insecurities. I actually see trauma in humans now. Like the way they talk to me, I'm like, you've got baggage. Like obviously I do as well, but I swear down I can see like projections, and I don't know, like I don't want to act like I know shit about like people at work, the way they speak to me, and that sometimes I'm like, you externalize the problem. I know more about you than you think. Let's unwire your neuroses. Anyway, I'm running out of storage. My name's Oxen, OXSN. You learn that love is pain, then learn to love the pain. The pain, it makes me stronger. That's why I'm on top of my game.